The boy's eyes were the first thing he noticed, not their color, but the frantic, desperate energy swimming in them. They were the eyes of a cornered animal, darting from face to face in the crowded Nebraska rest stop, searching for something, for anyone. Nathan "Sticks" Brennan had seen those eyes before. He'd seen them on terrified witnesses, on abused kids, on people whose worlds were crumbling one horrifying second at a time. In his 26 years with the Nebraska State Patrol, those eyes had been a silent siren, a signal that the ordinary had been violently interrupted. Sticks leaned against the brick wall of the main building, the afternoon sun warming the black leather of his Iron Valley MC vest. He was 52, with a face mapped by long miles and hard days, and a body that ached in ways it hadn't 20 years ago. He was halfway to Sturgis for the annual rally, a pilgrimage he'd made for 19 straight years. This stop was just about stretching his legs and grabbing a bottle of water, a brief pause in the hypnotic rhythm of the highway. Then, the silver minivan pulled into a spot nearby. A man with a greasy ponytail and a stained t-shirt got out of the driver's side, barking something at the woman who emerged from the passenger seat. She was thin, with jittery movements and a hard-set jaw. And then the kids got out of the sliding door. The boy, who looked to be about 10, and a little girl, maybe 6, with blonde hair so pale it was almost white. The girl looked groggy, her movements slow and disconnected, as the woman roughly pulled her by the arm. The boy, however, was a live wire of tension. He scanned the crowd, his gaze bouncing off a family laughing by their RV, a trucker talking on his phone, a college student staring at a map. His eyes met Sticks's for a fraction of a second, and in that moment, the world seemed to slow down. The boy's expression was a raw plea. As the woman herded him and his sister toward the entrance, the boy lagged just a step behind. He locked eyes with Sticks again, his mouth forming 3 distinct, silent words. I don't know them. The air punched out of Sticks's lungs. His cop brain, the part of him that had never truly retired, snapped to full alert. Every instinct, honed over 2.5 decades of seeing the worst of humanity, screamed that this was real. This was happening right now. The woman yanked the boy's arm. "Come on, Leo, stop dawdling." Her voice was sharp, a file rasping on metal. The boy, Leo, stumbled forward. He was holding a large fountain soda. In a move so deliberate it looked like an accident, his foot caught on a crack in the pavement. He pitched forward, and the giant cup of soda went flying, exploding in a sticky brown wave across the sidewalk right at the woman's feet. "For God's sake, you clumsy brat!" she shrieked, jumping back as the soda soaked her cheap canvas shoes. The man spun around, his face a mask of fury. "You did that on purpose." Leo scrambled to his feet, his face a perfect picture of feigned apology. "I'm sorry. I tripped. I'm so sorry." It was a stall. Sticks knew it with absolute certainty. The kid was buying time. He was creating a scene, trying to draw attention. He was fighting. Sticks pushed off the wall, his movements casual, measured. He didn't want to spook them. He ambled over, pulling a handkerchief from his back pocket. "Here, let me help with that." The man shot him a venomous look. "We've got it. Mind your own business." Sticks ignored him, crouching down near the boy. "Hey, buddy, accidents happen. You all right?" He kept his voice low and calm. As he dabbed at the spilled soda near the boy's feet, he looked up at Leo. The boy's eyes were wide, telegraphing a universe of fear. Sticks gave a nearly imperceptible nod. "I see you." The woman was still muttering, complaining about the mess. The man grabbed Leo by the back of the neck. "Get inside and get another drink. And if you spill it, I swear." He shoved the boy toward the doors. As Leo passed Sticks, he risked a whisper, so quiet it was barely a breath against the hum of the vending machines. "My sister." Lily. They gave her sleepy medicine. Then he was gone, swallowed by the automatic doors. Styx stood up slowly. His heart was hammering against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of adrenaline and fury. The little girl, Lily, was leaning against the minivan, her eyes half closed. She wasn't just tired, she was sedated. The ill-fitting princess t-shirt she wore was wrinkled, and one of her pink sneakers was untied. The man and woman weren't acting like parents, they were acting like handlers, impatient, angry, their focus entirely on control and containment, not care. This wasn't a family having a bad day. This was a kidnapping in progress. Styx knew he had a window of maybe 5 minutes. He walked back toward his Harley-Davidson road glide, the chrome gleaming in the sun. He pulled out his phone. His fingers were steady, his training overriding the tremor of rage that threatened to shake him. He had one chance to get this right. His thumb hovered over the contacts. He could call 911 first, and he would. But the official channels were slow. A bolo would go out, cruisers would start looking, but these people could be across the state line in an hour. He needed a faster, more effective net. He needed his brothers. He dialed the first number. It was answered on the second ring. Bear, it's Styx. Styx, what's wrong? You sound like you're on the job again. Bear, the president of the Iron Valley MC, was a man who could read a sentence in the tone of a single word. I need the signal sent. Code red. Now. There was a dead pause on the other end of the line. Code red was the club's highest alert, reserved for life or death emergencies involving one of their own or their family. It hadn't been used in 3 years. Where are you? What is it? I-80 eastbound. Kearney Rest Area, mile marker 352. I have an active child abduction. 2 children. Leo, male, approximately 10. Lily, female, approximately 6. The girl is drugged. Suspects are a white male, late 30s, greasy ponytail, and a white female, thin, mousy brown hair. They're in a silver Dodge Grand Caravan, Nebraska plates, but they look fake. I haven't gotten the number yet. They're inside the building now. They'll be out any second. Understood. Bear's voice was suddenly cold steel. Every available brother. I-80 eastbound. Box them in. I'm 20 minutes out. Ghost is 10 minutes west of you. Axel is fueling up in Grand Island. He can be ahead of them in 15. How many are responding? Styx could hear papers rustling, then the sound of another phone being dialed. Bear was a master logistician, a former construction foreman who could coordinate a dozen crews without breaking a sweat. I'm on it. We'll have a rolling net across a 50-mile stretch in minutes. Don't lose them, Styx. And don't engage alone unless you have to. I won't. Styx hung up and immediately dialed 911, his voice shifting into the clipped, professional cadence of his old life. State Patrol, what's your emergency? This is former trooper Nathan Brennan, badge number 714. I am at the I-80 eastbound rest area at mile marker 352. I am reporting a child abduction in progress. He relayed the same information, his eyes glued to the glass doors of the rest stop building. The dispatcher was professional, but he could hear the bureaucratic gears turning. A patrol car was being dispatched. ETA was 12 minutes. 12 minutes was a lifetime. In 12 minutes, that minivan could be 10 miles away, lost in the river of traffic. Just then, the doors slid open. The man came out first, scanning the parking lot. His eyes landed on Styx, who was now ostensibly checking the saddlebags on his bike. The man's gaze narrowed with suspicion. Then, the woman emerged, dragging Lily with one hand and shoving a new cup of soda at Leo with the other. Leo saw Styx. His eyes, for a split second, flickered with a desperate hope. He tripped again, this time right next to Styx's motorcycle. He didn't spill the drink, but he fell to his knees, his hands landing on the hot asphalt. The man cursed and stormed over, hauling the boy up by his shirt. "What is wrong with you?" "I'm okay," Leo cried out, his voice thin and reedy. I wanted to look at the motorcycle." Sticks stepped between the man and the boy. "Hey, take it easy. He's just a kid." "Nice bike, huh?" he said, winking at Leo. The man's hand was still clenched in Leo's shirt. His knuckles were white. "Get in the van. Now. All of you." He shoved Leo toward the minivan. As the boy passed, he looked Sticks dead in the eye and whispered, "I tried to tell the lady at the counter. She said I was making up stories. She told me to go find my parents." He choked on the word. "Please. Nobody believed me." "I believe you, son." Sticks's voice was a granite promise. "Now do what he says. Get in the van. We're coming for you." The relief that washed over the boy's face was so profound, it was heartbreaking. It was the look of a drowning person finally finding a hand to pull them from the water. He scrambled into the van without another word. The sliding door slammed shut. The engine roared to life, and the silver minivan peeled out of the parking spot with a squeal of tires, heading for the on-ramp. Sticks was already swinging his leg over his bike. He thumbed the ignition, and the 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 engine exploded with a ground-shaking roar. He didn't wait. He pulled out right behind them, keeping a 3-car distance, his phone now connected to his helmet's Bluetooth headset. "Bear, they're on the move. Eastbound on 80. License plate is George Henry Frank, 529. It's a real plate, but I'll bet my badge it's stolen." "Copy that, Sticks. Plate is registered to a blue pickup in Omaha. It's stolen. Ghost is on the ramp behind you now. Axel is 5 miles ahead, waiting. I've got 18 brothers converging from every direction. They're not getting away." Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this story will remind you that the smallest voices often carry the most important truths. No matter where you are in the world, take a moment to really listen to a child today. You never know what you might hear. Sticks settled in for the chase. The minivan was weaving through traffic, driving erratically, pushing 90 miles per hour. The man behind the wheel was clearly spooked. He kept checking his rearview mirror, his paranoia growing with every mile that the lone Harley stayed behind him. He didn't know it wasn't just one bike. He didn't know that a silent, leather-clad army was mobilizing around him. Up ahead, unseen, Axel, a former long-haul trucker who knew every inch of this highway, was pulling his massive bike out from behind the cover of an overpass. 2 more Iron Valley riders fanned out behind him. They began to slow their pace, creating a subtle drag on the flow of traffic in the right lane. From the west, coming up fast, was Ghost. His real name was Mike, and he was a scout by nature, a man who could blend into any environment. He was followed by 4 more bikes, their engines a low, thrumming harmony. They began to fill the gaps in the left lane, boxing the minivan in from behind. Sticks stayed in the center, a constant, menacing presence in the minivan's mirror. He could see the man gesturing frantically, the woman in the passenger seat looking back with wide, terrified eyes. They were caught, and they were starting to realize it. The trap was sprung at mile marker 399, the exit for Lincoln. As the minivan approached, Axel and his 2 wingmen expertly maneuvered their bikes, forcing the van into the exit lane. There was nowhere else for it to go. The driver had a choice: plow through 3 800-pound motorcycles or take the ramp. He chose the ramp. The moment his tires hit the off-ramp, it was over. Another group of 5 Iron Valley bikes, led by Bear himself, was waiting at the top, parked in a solid wall of chrome and steel across the road. The minivan screeched to a halt 50 feet from the blockade, its tires smoking. From behind, Sticks and the others pulled up, completing the box. 18 motorcycles, 18 men in leather vests, dismounting in unison, their faces grim. The sound of nearly 24 boots hitting asphalt was the only sound in the sudden, ringing silence. They formed a silent, immovable perimeter around the vehicle. The driver of the minivan panicked. He threw the vehicle into reverse, only to find Ghost's front wheel inches from his bumper. He was trapped. If you've ever witnessed something terrible and felt the crushing weight of not being believed, if you've ever been the small voice trying to speak truth to a world that wasn't listening, pause for just a moment to like and share this story. Because what happened next would prove that when one person finally listens, an entire brotherhood answers the call. Now back to the story. The wail of sirens cut through the air. 2 Nebraska State Patrol cruisers came screaming up the ramp, lights flashing. The troopers who got out saw the scene, the surrounded van, the silent circle of bikers, and immediately understood. One of them, a young trooper named Harris, recognized Styx. "Brennan? What the hell is going on?" Styx pointed at the van. 2 abducted kids inside. Leo, 10, Lily, 6. Girls been drugged. Suspects are armed and... He was cut off by the passenger door of the van flying open. The woman scrambled out, a small pistol in her hand. She grabbed the handle of the sliding door, trying to get to the kids. "Get back! I'll shoot!" she screamed, her voice cracking with terror. Bear took 1 step forward, his massive frame blocking her view of everything else. "Lady, there are 18 rifles in our saddlebags. You have a pistol. This is a math problem you cannot win. Put the gun on the ground. Now." Her eyes darted around, seeing no escape. The troopers had their weapons drawn. The bikers stood like statues, radiating a cold, lethal calm. Her resolve crumbled. The pistol clattered to the pavement. The man in the driver's seat put his hands up in surrender. The troopers moved in, cuffing the pair and reading them their rights. As soon as the suspects were secured, Styx and another biker named Doc, a former army medic, went to the van. Styx slid open the door. Leo was huddled in the back seat, his arms wrapped tightly around his little sister. He was shielding her with his own body. He looked up at Styx, his eyes filled with tears, but his expression was one of fierce, protective defiance. "It's okay, Leo." Styx's voice was gentle. "It's over. You're safe now." Doc gently checked on Lily. "Her pulse is thready, breathing is shallow," he said, already pulling a small medical kit from his vest. "She's been given a benzodiazepine, most likely. We need to get her to a hospital." He wrapped her in a blanket one of the brothers produced from a saddlebag. Leo wouldn't let go of his sister's hand. He watched as the man and woman who had stolen them were put into the back of the patrol cars. He looked at the circle of huge, bearded men standing guard around them, and for the first time in 2 days, the terror began to recede, replaced by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion and relief. The scene at the State Patrol barracks in Lincoln was a strange mix of chaos and calm. Paramedics had taken Lily to the hospital to be monitored, with Doc riding in the ambulance to provide her medical history. Leo sat in a small interview room, a warm blanket around his shoulders, sipping a hot chocolate that a female officer had brought him. He hadn't said much. He just sat there, watching the door, waiting. Styx stayed with him. He didn't ask questions. He just sat in the chair opposite the boy, a quiet, reassuring presence. The other 17 members of the Iron Valley MC were outside in the parking lot, drinking coffee from the station's machine, a silent promise that they weren't leaving until they knew the kids were truly safe. The story came out in pieces. The suspects, whose real names were Mark and Cindy Rask, were part of a trafficking ring that operated along the I-80 corridor. They'd snatched Leo and Lily from a park in their hometown of Des Moines, Iowa, 200 miles and 2 days ago. They'd been heading west to a buyer in Denver, Leo's quick thinking and relentless attempts to get help had been the only thing that had saved them. He'd tried to leave a note in a gas station bathroom. He'd tried to tell a waitress at a diner. He'd mouthed the words for help to at least 5 different people at that rest stop before he saw Styx. Every single one of them had looked away. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to share it and subscribe to Bike Diaries, because what happened next would prove that the bonds of brotherhood are stronger than any chain, and the courage of one small boy can move mountains of men. Hit that hype button, and if you want to support what we do, the membership link is below. Now back to the story. At 6:47 p.m., a frantic couple burst through the doors of the barracks. They were David and Maria Mendez, Leo and Lily's parents. They had been living in a waking nightmare for 48 hours, coordinating with police, plastering flyers, praying for a miracle. The call from the Nebraska State Patrol had been that miracle. A trooper led them to the interview room. When the door opened, Maria Mendez saw her son. A sound escaped her throat, a cry of pure, unadulterated relief that seemed to carry all the pain of the last 2 days with it. "Leo!" Leo's head snapped up. "Mom! Dad!" He launched himself out of the chair and into their arms. The family collapsed into a single, sobbing embrace. David Mendez held his son, his body shaking, while Maria rained kisses on the boy's head, her tears soaking his hair. They held each other for long minutes, and every cop in that station, every hardened biker in the parking lot who could see through the window, had to look away, a lump forming in their own throats. After a few minutes, David Mendez looked up, his eyes finding Styx, who was standing quietly by the door. His face was a wreck of emotion, gratitude, awe, disbelief. He walked over to Styx and pulled him into a fierce hug. You're the one? The man on the motorcycle?" Styx nodded, patting the man's back. "I am." How can we ever?" David's voice broke. He couldn't finish the sentence. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough. It doesn't even begin to cover it. You saved my son. You saved our little girl. You gave us back our lives." "Your boy saved them," Styx said, his voice thick with emotion. "He's the hero today. He never gave up." Later that evening, after Lily was cleared from the hospital and the family was temporarily settled in a hotel, Styx found Leo sitting on the curb outside the barracks. The other bikers were starting to head home, their quiet goodbyes a rumble of engines fading into the night. Styx sat down next to the boy. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the last of the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "You did a very brave thing today, Leo," Styx said softly. Leo looked at the big, weathered man beside him. "I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right, even when you are. You saw something wrong, and you didn't stop until somebody listened. That's the hardest thing in the world to do." "You listened," Leo said, his voice small. "Why?" "The other people. They didn't want to see." Styx reached into his vest and pulled something from an inside pocket. It was a heavy, bronze coin with the Iron Valley MC insignia, a piston and a mountain range, stamped on one side. He pressed it into Leo's hand. "Because sometimes it just takes one person to look a little closer. This is a challenge coin. It means you're part of our family now. It means you'll never be alone. And it means that from now on, someone will always be listening." Leo closed his small hand around the coin. It was warm and heavy, a solid, real thing in a world that had felt unreal for 2 days. He looked up at Styx, and his voice was clear and certain. "Thank you for believing me. Thank you for watching this story about Leo, Lily, and Nathan Styx Brennan of the Iron Valley MC. It's a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes They wear leather vests and ride motorcycles. But more than that, it's a reminder that we have a responsibility to listen to the children in our lives, to believe them when they tell us something is wrong, and to be the person who takes action when no one else will. Please, subscribe to Bike Diaries, hit that hype button, and the membership link is below if you want to support these stories. Share this with everyone who needs to remember that paying attention can literally save a life. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where you noticed something was wrong? What did you do? We want to hear your stories of courage and community. 1 year later, the sound of 20 motorcycles roaring down a quiet suburban street in Des Moines turned every head on the block. The bikes pulled up in a neat, staggered line in front of the Mendez house. Styx swung off his road glide and was immediately tackled in a hug by a fast-growing 11-year-old boy. "Styx, you came!" Leo yelled, his face beaming. "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Happy birthday, kid." The Iron Valley MC had ridden the 200 miles from their clubhouse to be there for Leo's birthday party. They brought presents, a new bicycle from the whole club, a leather vest just his size with a single prospect patch on it from Bear, and a book on forensic science from Styx. They were no longer strangers. They were uncles, family forged in a moment of crisis. Maria and David Mendez greeted them with hugs and plates of food. Lily, fully recovered and bubbly as ever, showed off her cartwheel skills to a massive biker named Bear, who applauded with a grin that split his beard. Later that afternoon, Styx found Leo in his room. The challenge coin he'd given him sat in a place of honor on his dresser, next to a framed photo of Leo, Styx, and the whole club taken in the parking lot of the barracks that day. The hyper-vigilant, terrified boy from the rest stop was gone. In his place was a confident, happy kid who knew, without a doubt, that he was safe. He knew that in a world that sometimes looked away, there were people who would always see him. 7 years later, the door to the Iron Valley clubhouse swung open, and a tall, confident 18-year-old young man stepped inside. He had the same dark, intelligent eyes Styx remembered, but the fear was long gone, replaced by a quiet determination. Styx, now 61 and the club's president, looked up from the table where he was cleaning his pistol. "Leo, what brings you all the way out here?" Leo Mendez smiled and walked over, placing an official-looking envelope on the table. He slid it across the worn wood. "I wanted you to be the first to know." Styx picked it up. It was an acceptance letter. He read the words, and a slow, proud smile spread across his face. "Congratulations on your acceptance to the Nebraska State Patrol Training Academy, Class of 22B. He looked up at the young man he considered a nephew, a son. "Well, I'll be damned. You're really doing it." Leo nodded. "For the last 7 years, I've only wanted to be one thing. I want to be the person who listens. Like you did." Styx stood up and pulled the young man into a rough, heartfelt hug. The other club members in the room raised their beers in a silent, respectful toast. The story of Leo Mendez and the I-80 rescue had become a club legend, a core piece of their history. It was a reminder they told every new prospect, a reminder that their brotherhood wasn't just about bikes and black leather. It was about showing up. It was about drawing a line in the sand and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. It was about the profound, world-changing power of simply believing a child.